You can see exactly what you mean. The structure is there, the logic is there, and inside your own head it already makes sense. But the moment you try to explain it, it starts breaking apart. The words come out in fragments, the thread slips, and if the other person starts drifting, the whole thing gets even harder to hold on to. So the problem is not always that you do not know what you think. Sometimes the real problem is that what is clear internally does not translate cleanly under pressure. This is not happening because you are unintelligent, and it is not necessarily happening because your thoughts are confused. In many cases, the opposite is true. The issue is that internal clarity and external expression do not run on the same format. You may already be holding the whole thing as one connected structure, while speech forces you to break that structure into smaller pieces and deliver them in sequence. That can make someone look unclear in conversation, even when the understanding inside their own mind is actually very precise. Some minds do not think mainly in short sentence-sized chunks. They think in patterns, layers, relationships, and whole systems. Instead of building one small idea at a time, they often see how multiple parts connect all at once. That works well internally because the structure is already there in full. But speech is linear. It has to come out one step at a time in an order another person can follow. So the moment you start talking, you are not just expressing a thought, you are compressing a full internal model into a narrow verbal sequence. This is where cognitive mismatch often starts to matter. Many people do not track conversation in full structures for very long. They tend to follow in short conceptual windows, and if the point is not clear quickly enough, their attention starts to drop. That creates a mismatch between how you are holding the idea and how they are trying to receive it. You may still be building the structure, while they are already waiting for a simplified conclusion. And once you feel that gap open up, the conversation can start breaking down very fast. And this is where it stops being just a communication problem. The moment the other person looks confused, interrupts, loses interest, or starts treating what you are saying like it is too much, emotional triggers can come online fast. Now, it is not just about translating the thought anymore. It is also about what that moment means. It can touch old memories of being misunderstood, dismissed, talked over, or made to feel like the way you think is wrong. Once that happens, part of your attention is no longer on the structure. It is on the emotional reaction the interaction has triggered. That is why it can suddenly feel like your mind has gone blank right when you need it most. The thought itself has not necessarily disappeared. What has changed is your access to it. You are no longer just holding the structure and putting it into words. You are now also managing tension, tracking the other person, reacting to the meaning of the moment, and trying not to lose the thread at the same time. So, what feels like losing the thought is often the result of interference, not the absence of understanding. At that point, most logical minds do what comes naturally to them. They try to solve the problem through more understanding. They analyze the pattern, replay the interaction, and try to work out exactly why it keeps happening. And that makes sense, because if understanding usually helps you solve things, it feels like the obvious path here too. But this is where a lot of people get stuck. They become very good at explaining their own emotional patterns without becoming much better at staying regulated when those patterns get activated in real time. And that leads to the deeper paradox. You can understand exactly why this keeps happening. You can see the cognitive mismatch, the social friction, the emotional trigger, and the way the whole pattern unfolds, and still find yourself pulled off course when it happens again. So the issue is not just understanding the pattern. The issue is that understanding your emotional patterns does not automatically give you a way to regulate them. And that is where most people start realizing they have been trying to solve a regulation problem with insight alone. So if this keeps happening to you, the problem is probably not that you have nothing to say and not that your thinking is broken. It is more likely that two different forces are colliding at once. One is the challenge of compressing a full internal structure into linear speech. The other is the emotional interference that gets activated when the conversation starts to break down. Once those two combine, the whole experience can feel far more personal and destabilizing than it looks from the outside. And that is why understanding alone will only take you so far. When does it usually break down for you? Is it while you are still trying to compress the thought into words? Or does it happen the moment you feel the other person starting to drift? Let me know in the comments. If you want the deeper explanation for why understanding your emotional patterns still does not automatically give you a way to regulate them, there is a link in the description box below to a free video that fully explains it. And if you want to keep going here on YouTube first, watch the video up here because it takes this one a step further.